So as we begin this session, while we wait for some more participants to join, maybe we can start with the introductory part. So I would request each of you to introduce yourself within 2-3 minutes. So first I will request Jyoti Devigowda to kindly introduce herself.
First of all, I would like to, yes, thank you. I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me an opportunity to start of such an. My name is Jyoti, Professor of Statistics. I work in Kathmandu University, Nepal. I focus on interdisciplinary applications of statistics, and I have conducted surveys of nearly 700 households, rural households of Nepal, and I am interested in studying their energy consumption dynamics. Thank you.
Good, thank you, madam. Sarita Singh.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarita. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee to provide me the opportunity to speak in this platform. So thank you so much. And I'm a research scholar at Ambedkar University, Delhi, and I'm pursuing my PhD in the area of electricity trading. So basically, I'm working on the price, volume, and the volatility relationship of the electricity data that is available at the Indian Energy Exchange or the PXIL platforms. So I'm presently in the second year of my PhD program, and yet I have to present the synopsis of my PhD. So this is all about me. Thank you.
So thank you, Sarita. Sarita, do you have a presentation or you will be speaking?
Sir, I have a presentation.
Okay, okay. Then I request Mr. Martin Jacques Pligenschnee. Martin?
Yes, hello everybody. Warmly welcome from Austria. Hope everyone is fine. And I will present some topics to auction systems and our findings we find so far.
Okay.
I'm from the Austrian Wind Energy. Sorry, I'm from the Austrian Wind Energy Association.
So thanks. And how do you pronounce your name, the last part?
Jacques Fliegenschnee. A little bit complicated, sorry for that.
Okay, okay, nice. And so we had Sarita saying, we have Mrs. Salve is there. Salve. SK.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm Salva Keke.
Salva Keke, yeah.
Yes, I'm PhD at Madras School of Economics, Chennai.
Okay.
Environmental economics. I'm mainly concentrated on renewable energy, how it is affecting environment, and what is the social acceptance of renewable energy. Now I'm in my third year, and thank you. Sorry, I forgot to express my thanks for these organizers for providing me an opportunity to present my topic. And that's all.
Okay, nice. Thank you. So we will begin with we can begin with Jyoti Devkota about her survey. So Jyoti, you have a presentation?
I will talk.
Okay.
I have a presentation also, but I can talk also.
Right. Okay. So let me just say a few things about this session, and then you can talk.
I would like to talk.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you are looking at the rural households, so you are looking at distributed generation kind
Okay,
of thing.
okay. Thank you.
But feed-in tariff and tariffs, they are very much the key aspects of development in renewable energy in India. And as all of you know, that we have something like 40 gigawatt of wind power and nearly the same and slightly more capacity of solar power. And just before this in a session, we were discussing, in fact, this aspect of tariffs. We were discussing many things, and one of them was also offshore projects that, India has a huge potential in the offshore region for the wind power. And but it seems that initially the tariffs will be higher or the cost will be higher, and probably those over large scale exploitation will come down. So there has to be an approach by which we can have these projects come up, because they will meet a very significant part of electricity requirements for India. There is a huge energy resource waiting out there. So this is one perspective or one aspect of the tariff issue. The other is when in the tariff issue, and particularly in India, we have had over the last 4 or 5 years auctions. The tariffs have uh, come down dramatically. In fact, in solar, this has been going on for last 10, 11 years, and the tariffs dropped very dramatically for almost like from rupees more than 12, 15, 16 rupees per kilowatt hour to rupees 2.4, 2.3, almost rupees 2, in fact, per kilowatt hour of, the tariff. And this, of course, very much corrects the picture with respect to the costing and with respect to the tariff that is realizable. But there is another picture associated with this, that when you do competitive bidding, you have an approach where the very large players, who can do bulk projects, very large projects, have a better capacity to bring down the tariff than the smaller players. And which means the small businesses, or I would say medium scale businesses, find it difficult to be in the business in a competitive scenario like that, which is prevailing in India. And only very large companies are able to do that. So till in India, I just want to give this picture that till 2016, 2017, the entire renewable energy regime, particularly the wind part, was driven by feed-in tariff and accelerated depreciation benefits. And this brought in a whole range of investors, small and big, who could invest. And this resulted, in fact, the feed-in approach resulted in something like 35 gigawatt of wind power installed all over the country, and a good amount of capacity to do the projects, to do the manufacturing, and all these things happened due to that. But after the transition from the feed-in tariff to the auctions, this capacity was made redundant. Some people could be hired here and there, and the companies, so many companies, the small businesses, they could no longer be active in the renewable energy market. They could no longer compete with very large players in the competitive bidding. In fact, the very structure of the company was such that in a competitive bidding case, you usually had a new company with a fund backing it. So this has had an impact on the sector. Many manufacturers went into very difficult times and closed down. Now, on the other hand, through the auctions fee, yes, we have had very large projects tendered and at a lower cost. So my point here that I want to make is that, yes, if we are looking at only bringing down the tariff, then such a policy of auctions and competitive bidding and what is also called the reverse auctions is a very good idea. But just bringing down the cost cannot be the only aspect of a policy framework. It has other aspects such as employment and economic development and more, more capacity building and utilizing of the existing capacities more effectively, sort of optimizing. So there are more economic and societal aspects to a policy. A policy is not just pegged on one parameter, which is just the cost or the tariff. So this needs to be looked at. And given that now India is looking at something like 500 megawatt of wind and solar power to be installed, and many players find it difficult once they have done the competitive bidding, they somehow manage to win the bids, and this is also a matter how they win it, how much groundwork they have done, and then they find that maybe there is a slight change in the policy or something, and it is very difficult to implement the projects. The impact on the costs of the reduced costs on the project quality and project implementation is also there. You cannot have very high quality people implementing the project. You cannot have very high quality equipment. So the quality takes a hit if you have very low cost approach. So there are positives and there are negatives, and this is generally the whole idea around the tariffs and how they should be done, how they should be structured, whether it is Germany, whether it is other countries. I think the similar issues are there. So with that, I think more or less is what I wanted to say. I would now request Devi Kota to talk about what she has done in her analysis. And in her case, it is not sort of a grid connected. I think probably it's more applicable from a distributed generation kind of thing. What are the kind of costs the people are prepared to pay, the tariffs that people are prepared today to pay in rural areas where generally the economic activity is of a different kind? So could you, Jyoti, go ahead?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I will start now. I will talk from the perspective of developing countries. Developing countries have limited and scarce official data, but data-based study is evidence-based study. And especially with respect to sustainable development goals, whatever gets, if attributes related to sustainable development goals are measured correctly, then the probability that those sustainable development goals are achieved is also very high. So the title of my paper is Role of Location of Household and its Socioeconomic Status on Energy Consumption Dynamics in Rural Nepal, a Categorical Data Analysis. I am a statistician, and I want to quantify in an evidence-based manner the impact of location of a house and its socioeconomic status in the whole energy consumption dynamic of rural areas. So the
Jyoti, do you
background,
have a presentation or?
I have a presentation, sir. Can I do the slide share, or I can continue with the talk? I have a printed form of the paper also. If you allow
Yeah,
me to
okay.
slide, if you allow me
Whatever
to,
you prefer.
so I will
Yeah.
speak. I will speak.
Okay. Okay. So,
Okay.
but please then put on the video probably, because then
Yes.
people can, yeah.
Um, so the background is benefits of renewable energy are not only direct but permeate in an intangible manner to several sectors. The national grid electricity of Nepal is hydropower based, so it is clean energy, and agricultural based economy of Nepal is suitable for biogas. Since Nepal has an agricultural based economy, it depends on cattle for its draft power and for the milk that it provides. And the cattle dung is the major input of biogas. And in this paper, we are trying to study, to measure quantitatively the intangible, the effect of renewable energy that are not direct but permeate in an intangible manner to several sectors. So here I have modeled the impact of time spent in the collection of firewood, type of house, amount of firewood saved, the time saved, employer and school located within 15 minutes distance in the use of renewable energy. So I am considering biogas and hydropower. But this same kind can be done for wind also. And I want to conduct detailed statistical analysis of energy consumption dynamics. So the result here, this is based on sample survey of 300 households of national grid electricity users. This survey was conducted in 2015, and 400 households of biogas users. This was conducted in 2010, and Rapti Renewable Private Limited was our partner industry. So here we tested 10 different hypotheses related to energy consumption pattern of grid electricity users and biogas users with the help of this data. And here 8 out of 10 hypotheses of null hypothesis of no difference was rejected. So there is a dependence, and categorical data analysis, multinomial logistic regression and odds ratio was used. So we found that the location of the school, the location of the employer, the socio-economic status of the house plays a critical role in the energy consumption dynamic of both type of users. And we try to quantify this impact with the help of odds ratio, and here we use multinomial logistic regression and categorical data analysis. So this much is this is what I want to tell you. Thank you for your kind attention. I have a slide also, one page. If I could share, then I could share this information also. If you could give
Yes,
me the
please.
slide share,
Please share.
I could
Share,
try to
please.
share it.
And
Share
Jyoti, can you also explain what were your hypotheses? You said 8 out of 10 hypotheses were rejected or something. So you could mention what are the hypotheses you were looking at.
So here is my slide. I hope you can see the slide.
Yeah,
Can you see the slide? Yes. So
yes,
here,
I can see.
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
So these 10 different hypotheses were related to the whether the location, look, if the school is within 15 minutes of the house, and if the school is more takes more than 15 minutes to travel. Similarly, employer, whether the employer is within 15 minutes of the house, or above is away by 15 minutes, or the position of the house, is it a pakka house or a kacha house. So all these things would be
Yeah,
quantified with the help of categorical data analysis, and it was quantified, and I have sent it for publication. You can see it in the proceedings also. So we quantified the time spent. The 10 hypotheses were related to time spent in the collection of firewood, type of house, amount of firewood saved. If you see in the objectives, it is written uh, um, uh, time
okay.
of time spent in the collection of firewood, type of house, amount of firewood saved, time saved, employer and school located within 15 minutes of distance. 10 hypotheses were related to these topics, and out of which 8 were came out to be statistically significant.
Okay. So thank you, Jyoti. If I think we'll take up questions later. If there are any questions, people can ask.
Okay, sir. Thank you
Uh,
for giving me the opportunity, sir. The university bus goes in half an hour, so I will be available only for half an hour to answer question and answer session.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience or participants here? At the moment, I think there are no questions. So, yeah. So, surely we will try to look at your constraint. Then I would now request Sarita Singh to make her presentation.
Hello everyone. So, sir, I'm presenting my paper. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Please put in a slide so more.
Is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
So the green electricity trading started very recently in India in the year August 2020 only. So I'm presenting a primer on that green electricity market in India. And the paper has been written by Dr. Kritika Mathur, Assistant Professor at SBPPSC, Ambedkar University, Delhi, and myself, Sarita Singh, who is a research scholar at SBPPSC, Ambedkar University, Delhi. So first, a brief introduction. India is the... Just a second. So, sorry for the disturbance. The brief introduction is India is the third largest producer of renewable energy, and the government of India has taken various initiatives like RPO policy, renewable energy certificates trading, which has now again started at IEX, and the green term ahead market. Now, the trading in the green India electricity market is taken place at the marketplaces such as PXIL. These are the two exchanges, PXIL and the Indian Energy Exchange, and it commenced on 21st August 2020 in both intraday contracts and the day-ahead contingency in both solar and the non-solar segments. Intraday is when the trading is done for the same day, and the day-ahead contingency is when the trading is done for the next day. The green market will provide liquidity to the developers to sell in the open market without entering into the long-term PPA agreements. This is the main attraction of this green market, that it will provide the liquidity to the sellers. There are contracts of 15 minutes each for both solar and the non-solar for delivery on the next day through a continuous trading process. So there is a continuous bidding which is taken place at every 15 minutes. And it is for both the solar segment as well as for the non-solar. So the purpose of the study was to study the price volume relationship and the trading characteristics of both solar and the non-solar green day-ahead contingency market using average daily and monthly data from the Indian Energy Exchange. So I've taken the data from the start, that is from August 2020 till August 2021 for the analysis, and also to study the growth trajectory of the green market with total volume traded over a period of time. So first, what is the green term ahead market? So IEX launched green term ahead market in August 2020, and it trades in various contracts such as intraday, day ahead contingency, daily, and the weekly. The daily and the weekly trading has yet not started. So for the analysis, I have taken only day ahead contingency market, and these contracts are also eligible to meet the RPO requirements of the companies, and hence they are traded on both solar and the non-solar segments. The pausing of the renewable energy certificate trading by the Appellate Tribunal for Electricity in July 2020 adversely affected the market, but the introduction of GTAM came as a relief to the renewable energy producers. Now again the REC trading has restarted. Now it has been approved, but for the period of 1 year, it was not allowed. The REC trading was not allowed. So to meet their RPOs, the companies were entirely dependent on this green electricity market. Next is the monthly price and the volume of the solar day-ahead contingency. I have only taken the day-ahead contingency market. So since August, when the market just started, we can see that for the first 2-3 months, when it took time to mature itself, the monthly traded volume was very less. But as the market matured and growed, we can see that it growed quite high, and the total monthly traded volume was highest for the month of July. It was 1,75,044, and where the total bid volume was 2,35,583, and the sell bid volume was 2,87,714 megawatt hour. And if we check at the buy volume and the sell volume ratio, the buy volume and sell volume ratio was also quite less at 0.81 for the month of July. For rest of the months, majorly, the buy volume was high, but for very few months, only that sell volume was high. Like if here the sell volume was high, here the sell volume was high. So we can say that it has chance to provide the liquidity. If more sellers are available in the market, there more liquidity can be provided to this market. So since July was having the highest monthly traded volume, so by using a funnel approach, I have also done an analysis of the daily contracts of July month. So I've divided those contracts into morning contracts, day contracts, and the evening contracts. So those contracts which are from B25 to B40, their delivery is due on the next day between 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So we can see that there is not very high volatility in the prices. The prices are more or less at the same range, like 3050 to 3137. So there is not very variation in the prices. It is almost in a range, and we can predict it very easily. There is no volatility in the day, in the morning contract. Same is the case with the day contracts, when the contracts are available with these names B41 to V68, and again you can see that there is no volatility with respect to the average traded volume. They are more or less in a range which is which we can, if we calculate a range, they fall between that range. Next is for the evening contracts. The evening contracts are those contracts where delivery is due on the next day between 5 to 11 p.m. Again, for those contracts, I could not find any variation, much of the variation or much of the volatility. We found that they are more or less in a range. So earlier I was talking about the solar contracts. Now I'm talking about the non-solar contracts. For the non-solar contracts also, for the July has the highest monthly traded volume. It may be due to the reason of the season, that July is there is quite heat in India in the month of July. So the demand for the electricity increases, and so here this impact is shown that the volume traded is highest. So again, I have done the daily contract analysis for July month. This is night contracts. For non-solar, obviously night contracts are also available, which are not available for the solar contracts. Again, here I could see that there is no variability, but the prices are high than the solar contracts. The non-solar contracts are traded at a higher prices than the solar contracts. There it was 3,700, 3,000. Here it is even crossing 4,000. But we can't say that there is a high variation in the prices. Same is the case for morning contracts. There is no variability, but definitely the prices or the equilibrium price is higher than the morning contracts of the morning solar contracts. This is for the day contracts, and these are for the evening contracts. The analysis and the findings are that for solar day ahead contingency contracts, the night contracts are not available. The trading data is available for V24 to V78 contracts. These are the name of the contracts, and these are traded at every 15 minutes. Then I have shown that what is the delivery time. Like for V25 to 40, the delivery is 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we can see that the average closing price here is only 3,081. And the trading volume is 802 megawatt hour. For day contracts, it is only 2,985. But if we go to non-solar, the average closing price is quite high. There's a difference of 1,000. Here it is 3,888. This difference is in each contracts, for the evening contracts as well as for the day contracts. So for both solar and the non-solar contracts, the daily average closing price and the average volume is highest for evening and night contracts. The results indicate that there is no direct relationship in the price and the volume traded. It is not that as if the volume is increases, the prices are also increasing. The prices are almost in a range. There is not much variation in the prices. And for most of the contracts, prices were found not to be volatile. Average prices for all the contracts, they were found to be in a range. And there is competitive price discovery of green energy in the market, and hence the average market prices were found to be stable over time with different volumes traded. However, the liquidity of green market can further be increased if more renewable producers enter the market and sell the surplus to different utilities to meet their demand and the RPO commitments. Next is the last slide. So the conclusion of the paper is that the green electricity market comprises electricity produced from the renewable sources of energy as a primary source, and Indian renewable energy sector has in flux great amount of capital and have long gestation periods that we all know. Government is dedicatedly working towards increasing share of the green energy and projecting different large scale investment projects. The decision makers, the legislators and the market participants will greatly reap benefits if the green market is operated at full capacity and scale, and it also facilitates different entities to meet their RPO compliances on timely and continuous basis by providing
Yeah,
liquidity.
Sarita,
Yes, sir.
Sarita, these conclusions that you are giving are coming not from your analysis. This is more or less like statement of facts. You know, the green electricity market comprises of electricity produced from renewable sources. So you
Okay.
should, if you can, you should summarize your conclusion based on the data and analysis that you have shown.
A second.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, so
So
we can say there is still a lot of liquidity available in this market. If more of the sellers, in most of the months I checked that the buying bids are more than the selling bids. There are not many sellers in the market, but buyers are there in the
the
market.
buyers are ready. Yeah.
Buyers are ready. So if more sellers enter the market, they can provide liquidity, and there could be a competitive. There could be good competition and good competitive price discovery for the green electricity market, and they don't need to enter to those long PPAs that is generally done in the renewable energy section.
So these are like stock market kind of analysis, or is it from the long term?
No, so it is spot
Yes.
market only. Like
Spot market. And that's why
yes,
it is very less. Because otherwise, there is a huge capacity which is running anyway.
yes, sir.
Good. Thank you. Now I would request Martin to thank you, Martin, to make his presentation.
Hello, I tried to share my screen. I think I fixed it now. So can you see it?
Yes.
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 So then hello again from the heart of Austria, the middle of Europe. I'm Martin Jack-Fliegenschnee from the Austrian Wind Energy Association, and we are in the middle of a change of the subsidy system. We had for 20 years feed-in tariffs, and we are now in the middle of a change and try to avoid auctions. But this is not very easy because the at ministry in Europe are right in favor the auction systems. And what I will bring you, the picture is, or the wish that auctions bring speed, quality, and costs down. Speed and quality up, and costs down. I look at some figures and look how and if auctions can fulfill these 3 points. If you look at the wind power installations worldwide, I'm sure you know this figure. You see that the development is straight up to the 2015, and then we have a small coming down. And the year 2020 was a very fine year because in China the development worked very well because they also wanted to change their systems. But if you look a little bit closer at the years between 16, 17, 18, then and you look at Europe, then you can see a very different picture. You see the way up to the year 2017, and then a steep drop up to 2020, and it seems as if Europe had lost the pace and lost the connection to the development that worked in other countries. And there's a question why. And one possibility if you compare this this graph with this here, Germany was for 20 years the most important development country for wind energy in Europe. And you see there was a big space from from the changing of the century to 2017 was a very big development up, and then it was a change. And this was the change when in Germany they implemented the auction system. There are many discussions now how to bring up the installations again. But interesting is that the discussion is not about the subsidy system. There's discussion about space, discussion about problems with birds and other and bats, and discussions about the acceptance, but not a discussion about the feed-in system or the auction system in this case. And if you compare it, another graph like this, there got many problems in the development of the project, and it also starts at 2017, starts when the auction starts in Germany. I've brought you one comment from Claudia Kempfert. Claudia Kempfert, I'm sure you know, is from the Germany Economic Institute, very famous person, and she is very engaged in this topic. And last week there was a comment of her to the situation in Germany, and this is very short, but it focuses on the very problem that is very hindering. The situation in Germany and also the auction system is hindering for getting the installations and getting the development of wind energy in Germany. But it's not only Germany. I've brought you here the graph of the awarded auction capacity in Europe, and you see the auction actually started in 2017 in Europe. Before there were some auctions, but the main capacities that get on the ground and were installed were allocated with feed-in systems or with premium systems who were administratively given and not awarded by auctions. And you see also here in whole Europe, the auctions started at 2017, the year when the development in Europe dropped down and stopped its pace up in the air. So this is one point. The speed is not the topic of auctions. As far as we can see in Europe, auctions has reduced the speed of development of wind energy. This is one topic. This is very important because actually we need much more speed than we had before and not less. Look at the second point, the quality. I'm sure you know this study is a study of the World Wind Association, and he looked also at the market in Germany, and actually it comes to the to mind that the auction system in Germany is very hindering for community power, and community power has a big potential and was a big player in the development in Germany. And if a big part of the projects can't come to the ground because of a hindering system, then also the development goes down. And also the companies that are there get less, and this is not good for a market. I brought you another comment. It was made 2 years ago from Andreas Nauen in Copenhagen, where at the same time there is a conference of Wind Europe. and he said we need to change auction system in the future because, and now this is the topic of the quality, because we need local jobs, and he argued that he can't create local jobs in this heavily fighting situation that auctions bring to the market. And not only the local jobs, also the innovation is hindered by the auction system that pressing the price down. I bring you another study. This study is nearly a year old and is made from a whole bunch of institutions that are analyzing auctions in the wind sector for many years. And also they said, actually, auctions are good for companies and projects that are very big, but the wind industry in Austria, not in Austria, in Europe, and also in Austria, is differently organized. There are big companies and many small ones. And so the finding of this study was, maybe we have to divide this, that up to a project range of 60 megawatts, there should be not auctioned, there should be administratively given, like feed-in tariffs or premium systems without auctions to get the speed again to the wind industry. So there was the speed, there was the quality, and then let's look a little bit at the costs. Auctions always have the narrative that they bring the costs down. We made a short study and tried to look at the Austrian system that we had the last 20 years and the tender system that is now implemented in Germany. We compared a wind turbine, a fictive wind turbine that is implemented in the Austrian system or in the Germany system, and we find that actually the more efficient system is Austria and not is Germany, not Austria. In Germany, the projects get more money than in Austria. So actually, the feed-in system in Austria had brought the costs more down than the auction system that we have now for 5 years in Germany. Another scientific study we made of the technical university in Austria has made this for us, and they tried to look in the Austrian situation how a tender system, auction system, or administrative allocation could look like. And actually, the finding was that if you have an administrative allocation that works well, then this system would be around 40% cheaper than a tender system. So actually, we have no speed, we have no quality, and we don't bring the cost down with auctions. And therefore, we would prefer administrative allocated subsidy system for 20 years, variable premium system or feed-in system, a reference yield model like in Germany, because in Austria we have very different sites. We have mountainous sites. As you see in my video, this is the highest mountain site in Austria, and we have low-level sites, and they are very different and need different subsidies to get on the ground. Actually, in the near future, we need a change of the market system. This is which is oriented to the renewables and not to the fossil industry. And now, at last, the picture what we should have. you see the development in 2020, which was around 11 gigawatts in Europe. And actually, to reach the climate goals, we need 27 gigawatts in Europe. So we need more than to double or to triple, more or less, development. And so we need to get more speed, to get more quality. And I want to close my speech with the words of Antonio Guterres from the UN. It is time to go into emergency mode. We need more speed, more quality. And I think one part that hinders us are the auction system that was implemented in the last years. So thank you for being my guests for the presentation.
So, thank you, Martin. And well, it's time for the emergency mode, and then you can probably not go into very evolved or very, I would say, even cumbersome systems of auctions. So my experience and the experience in this country is that the FIT system did work, and it worked well to bring in a capacity of something like 35 gigawatt. And all this entire capacity, 35 gigawatt of wind power, and all this capacity came up because of investments which happened from local businesses. There were no major international big funds which were operating, because let us look at it this way also, that the local businesses and the local populations should also benefit from the renewable energy program in the long term. It is not just photons that you pump into or the electrons you pump into the grid, but it is also that the people living here should benefit. So the local businesses, if they make an investment, they get a return on investment, and they employ people locally. And where you have international funds, big funds, whatever return comes, that return finally goes back to them. So that is another aspect of, I would say, the auction regime. So I hope the governments, not only in India and many other parts of the world, listen to this aspect, that the FIT is a reasonably good system. What they can do is they can have, say, every 3 years, they can have an auction and have a price discovery. And then around that, they work out a policy regime, which is like that. So what do you think, and do you have any comments on that, Martin?
So I think it's not a question of being smart and bring the local population into the project. I think it's necessary. I think we can't get the speed we need if we don't integrate the population which is living around the wind turbines, and if they don't profit. Because we have some big players that will implement some projects, but this is not enough. And the big parts and the big numbers of projects we only can get if we can unchain the local population and the local players who bring also the project on the ground. I think this is a very, very important point in this context.
Yeah, thank you. And now I will request Salva KK to make the presentation. And Martin, I may come back to you later if you have time. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah.
Okay, I will share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
We can see.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now our paper is titled Investigating the Effect of Renewable Energy Adoption and Environmental Economic Perspective. Here we have, this paper is entirely based on some empirical analysis with some econometric tools. We know that the relationship between energy consumption and economic growth is widely researched area. Even though proper consensus regarding those relationship is not existing, some studies found energy consumption contributing to economic growth. However, increased energy consumption is a matter of concern because its use mainly in the form of CO2 emission could become detrimental to climate and environment. United Nations Environment in 2019 reported that increased concentrations of CO2 and other greenhouse gases are driven mainly by people consuming fossil fuels to meet growing energy demand, which indicates that some energy conservation is essential for the health of environment. But if such measures are not properly planned, it could come at the risk of economic growth. So, as a solution for reducing energy-related emission without offsetting economic growth, renewable energy gained attention. But unfortunately, energy security and economic development often become reason behind its promotion. Even if it is driven by environmental sustainability, usually attention gives for climate change mitigation. Since environmental issues are also a challenge of this century, it seems appropriate to check how renewable energy is affecting the environment. Despite of the growth of renewable energy, non-renewable energy still plays a significant role in global energy system. So, to get a consistent result regarding the impact of renewable energy, we should account for non-renewable energy as well. And based on this obtaining result, appropriate energy policies can be adopted only if we analyze how energy is affecting economic growth. So, in this context, our paper intends to find out how renewable and non-renewable energy is affecting environment, along with the incorporation of energy economic growth nexus. Most of the countries in Asia are at their developing stage, so increased energy consumption and thereby increased emission is expected for the years to come. United Nations reported in 2019 that more than 40% of increase in global anthropogenic carbon dioxide emission over the period of 1990 to 2014 is driven mainly by large increases in Asia. Though Asia's energy consumption and emission is very high, Asia is also active in promoting renewable energy. That is, in 2018, Asia accounted for 50% of new investment made in renewable sector worldwide. So it seems appropriate to choose Asia as the study area. Studies on the relation between energy, economic growth, and environment falls under two categories of EKC hypothesis and energy economic growth nexus. EKC hypothesis check how economic growth is affecting the environment. Whereas under energy economic growth nexus, studies usually try to find out the causal relationship between energy and economic growth. Even though many studies can be found in these two categories, studies analyzing energy consumption, environment, and economic growth together is very less. So we choose these three variables for our analysis. Here I would like to provide a snapshot about the literature which we reviewed as a part of this analysis. As I already mentioned, first two categories of literature falls under EKC hypothesis and energy economic growth. And in third category, we analyzed the literature which examined EKC hypothesis along with energy consumption as well as those analyzed energy economic growth nexus with environmental degradation as well. EKC hypothesis usually assumes U-shape relation, which means environmental degradation increases with economic growth at the initial stage, but later on economic growth itself will find solution for environmental degradation. Some studies found the evidence for the existence of EKC hypothesis, whereas some others could not find it is existing. Under energy economic growth nexus, many studies are conducting, but because of the time constraint, I'm not going to explain all those studies. But usually these studies find out 4 hypotheses. That is, one is the growth hypothesis, that is causal relation from energy consumption to economic growth. Second hypothesis is the conservation hypothesis, that is causal relation from economic growth to energy consumption. Third is the feedback hypothesis, that is bidirectional causality between these two variables. And fourth is the neutral, absence of no causality. And we have also analyzed the literature in this category. I'm not explaining those literature. Now I will explain our economic model as well as the data used for analysis. As I already mentioned, our intention is to find out how energy consumption and economic growth is affecting environmental degradation or affecting environment. We consider 2 proxies. This is our model, and here we consider 2 proxies for environment. That is, first one is ecological footprint consumption, and second one is CO2 emission. We run separate model for these 2 indicators. And our main independent variable is the renewable energy consumption, whereas we have also included non-renewable energy consumption. The growth factor is GDP. As we have included energy economic growth nexus, we have included the common variables which is used by those literature. And those variables are FDI inflows, fixed capital formation, and population growth. We consider 26 developing countries of Asia, and those countries were analyzed from 1992 to 2017. Here I provide the explanations of our variables as well as their mean value. One of our dependent variable is the footprint consumption, that is ecological footprint consumption, which shows the human demand for natural resources, including cropland, forest land, fishing ground, grazing land, and built-up land. It is measured in global hectare. On average, our countries requires 2.1 global hectare of natural resources. And second dependent variable is the CO2 emission measured in tons per capita. On average, our countries emit 2.8 tons of CO2. And our main dependent variable is renewable energy consumption, measured as a share in total final energy consumption. In our countries, around 29% of energy comes from renewable energy. And we have also included fossil fuel consumption measured as a percentage share in primary energy consumption. It contributes around 84%. Then our main growth variable is the GDP. Along with that, other growth variables include gross fixed capital formation, net inflows of FDI, and population growth. Here I will explain how we estimated the model. First, we check whether there is any collinearity, and we have also analyzed correlation relationship. And often the analysis with panel data assumes that there is no panel-specific heterogeneity and cross-sectional dependence. But if this problem is existing and if we do not correct it for this, then the panel estimates won't be better than a single time series estimates. So first we check whether there is any panel-specific heterogeneity using Pesar and Yamagata's test. And it found that there is the existence of panel-specific heterogeneity. In addition to that, Pesar and CD test shows that cross-sectional dependency is presented in our variable. So, in presence of these two problem means indicates that first generation unit root test won't perform better. So we choose second generation unit root test of cross-sectional augmented decay Fuller test for testing stationarity. It shows that our variables are of mixed order of integration. Therefore, in this presence of non-stationary variables, we check whether there is any long-run relationship. For that, we use Pedrone's co-integration test, and it shows that variable exhibit long-run relationship. So, the confirmation of long-run relationship within the panel-specific heterogeneity and cross-sectional dependence indicates that we can consider ARDL model for analysis. This model can be adopted even if our variables are of mixed order of integration. Hence, we use this ARDL model for obtaining short-run and long-run relationship as well as causal relationship between variables. This is the ARDL model for 2 of our dependent variable, footprint consumption and CO2 emission. Here, this mu I represents the country-specific fixed effects, and this is the lagged values of dependent variable, and this part ZID shows the vector of explanatory variables. And now this model can be expressed in error correction format as follows. Here, This is the ACM format for two of our dependent variable. This first part of these two equations, that's this part, phi a in bracket terms, and this part represents speed of adjustment in this dependent variable following a deviation from the long run equilibrium level. Whereas last part of these two equations represents short run dynamics. Here, this theta represents long run relationship between variables, and this phi I represents error correction time. Existence of long run relationship requires this phi I to be negative and significant. Now, this ARDL model can be estimated by using three estimators, that is MG estimator, mean group estimator, old mean group estimator, and dynamic fixed effect estimator. In this MG estimator, it performs different regression for each of the panel unit and provide heterogeneous coefficients. Whereas in PMG estimator, short-run estimates including intercept, speed of adjustment, and error variance will be heterogeneous, but long-run slope coefficient is homogeneous. In the case of DFE estimator, both the short-run and long-run slope coefficients, error variance, and speed of adjustment will be equal, but it allows for panel-specific intercept. Now, after running these three estimators, let us check whether there is any difference between these estimators by using Hausmann test. Here, the assumption is that homogeneities exist. Right? Therefore, if we fail to reject the null hypothesis between MG and PMG, it means long-run homogeneity is existing. Therefore, we choose PMG over MG. Like that, between PMG and DFE, if we fail to reject the null hypothesis, we choose PMG over DFE. In our analysis, we perform these three estimators, and after running this Hausmann test, our analysis support DFE estimator, so we choose DFE estimator for final discussion. Now, I will explain my result of our analysis. Here, mainly analysis findings are mainly categorized into three groups. That is energy consumption environmental relation, economic growth environmental relation, and energy consumption economic growth relation. Since we have two dependent variables, first I will analyze I will discuss the result with the ecological footprint consumption. This is the result which we obtained from this ecological footprint consumption. Here we have long run coefficients, and in the bottom part we have short run coefficients. This is each column represents the result of ARDL model run for each of our variables. This we perform ARDL model for each of our variables to get causal relationship. First, we can analyze how energy consumption is affecting environment. That is, in this footprint, we can say we can find out that renewable energy consumption is negatively associated with footprint consumption in the long run. Same negative relationship is therefore short run as well. But when it comes to non-renewable energy consumption, it is insignificant for long run, but positively associated in the short run. Now let us affect how footprint is affecting our energy consumption. That is, in the long run, there is insignificant relation for both renewable energy as well as non-renewable energy. But in the short run, footprint is negatively associated with renewable energy as well as with the non-renewable energy. Now let us examine how economic growth is affecting environment. So we can analyze how GDP, our main growth variable, is affecting. Here we can find out there is positive relationship between GDP and footprint in long run as well as in short run. But in the reverse manner, footprint is not significant for GDP in the long run. But there is positive association between them in the short run. And regarding the other growth factors, fixed capital formation is positively associated with the footprint in long run. But this becomes insignificant for short run. And FDI is found to be insignificant, whereas population is positively associated with footprint in long run, but the relation become negative in short run. Now let us examine how energy consumption and economic growth are related. For that, we can analyze how GDP is affecting renewable energy and non-renewable energy. Here we can find out that there is negative relationship between GDP and both of the energy consumption in long run. When it comes to short run, this relationship is insignificant. But when we analyze the impact of GDP, there is both of energy consumption is insignificant for GDP in the long run. But in the short run, renewable energy is reducing GDP in the short run. Now, interestingly, we have also found that both of our energy consumption are discouraging each other. That is, when come to long run, there is insignificant relationship between renewable energy and non-renewable energy. But renewable energy is reducing non-renewable energy consumption in the long run. But in the short run, we can find out both these renewable energy consumption as discouraging each other. That is, here also we have negative relation. Here also we have negative relation. Then finally, we can analyze what is the effect of error correction term, ECT. Let's look here, ECT for all variables, but for GDP is negative and significant, which means that long-term relationship is existing between our variables. Now let us examine result with the CO2 emission. This is the same DFE estimation result, but the dependent variable is our CO2 emission. Here also we obtain a result which is similar to the one which we obtained in footprint consumption. That is, regarding CO2 is negatively affected by renewable energy in the long run as well as in the short run, whereas non-renewable energy is insignificant in the long run, but there is positive relation between them in the short run. Like that, footprint is negatively associated with the, CO2 emission is negatively associated with renewable energy in the long run, but it is positive for non-renewable energy consumption. When come to renewable short run effect also, we can find that CO2 emission is negatively associated with the renewable energy consumption, but positive association for non-renewable energy consumption. Now let us look at this economic growth environmental relation. We can find from this relation that GDP is positively associated with the CO2 emission in the long run as well as in the short run. But CO2 is insignificant for GDP in the long run, but there is positive relationship between them in the short run. Regarding the other growth factors, CO2 emission is none of the growth factors is insignificant for CO2 in the long run, but there is some negative relation between capital formation and CO2 emission in the short run. Then, as in the earlier model also, we can find out that renewable energy and GDP are negative.
So, Salva, can you move to the conclusions, and
Okay,
results in conclusion? Yeah,
Okay.
because these tables. Yeah.
Okay. Then, before concluding, before going to the conclusion, I will discuss what we obtained from these two estimation itself. Which means renewable energy requires less resources and helps in reducing the emission. But non-renewable energy consumption requires more resources and it results in increased emission, at least in the short run. Like that, positive impact of GDP on resource consumption and CO2 emission means that our countries are growing at the expense of environment. But as a positive sign, we cannot find out a reverse relation from CO2 emission and ecological footprint consumption to the income in the long run, which indicates that if the countries adopted some emission reduction measures and resource conservation measures, there will be an immediate setback on economic growth, but it won't persist for a long period. Like that, GDP is found reducing the energy. GDP is reducing energy consumption in the long. It may be because the countries are trying to implement some energy conservation measures, or they are trying to have some energy efficiency in energy usage. Now, I will conclude my paper as well as provide some policy recommendation. That is, from this analysis, we can find out that renewable energy can be promoted for attaining energy security and economic growth without the fear of degrading the environment. So, I would suggest policymakers for implement some other additional measures for promoting renewable energy. However, we find that increased income resulting in increased resource consumption and emission. It could be a serious problem because most of our countries considered for this analysis are at their developing stage. So further growth and further increase in emission and resource consumption is expected. So some conservation measures is required. But as interestingly as there is no causal relation from footprint consumption and CO2 emission to GDP, these countries can implement those conservation measures and emission reduction measures without the fear of affecting a permanent setback on economic growth. Like that, absence of causality from energy consumption to economic growth indicates that energy conservation measures also can be implemented without having the fear of affecting their economic growth. So from this analysis, we can say that developing countries of Asia is trying to have efficiency in energy usage. They are trying to reduce emission and to have efficiency in resource conservation. So implementing some resource conservation measures. However, further measures are required to substitute deadly fossil fuels with renewable energy, as well as to ensure that their economic growth is not coming at the risk of resource exploitation and carbon emission. With this, I am concluding. And if you have any more clarification, you can ask.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, Salva. A very detailed analysis carried out by you for looking into these linkages between renewable energy, GDP, environmental development, economic development, as well as fossil fuel use. And have you published this somewhere?
No, sir, I have just completed this paper and I'm in the work for for publication.
Okay, good. So, a good analysis, more or less. Anyone has a question for Salva or
I
any
have
other
one
question?
question, sir.
Yeah.
The question is, you told that it's your result is based on data from 26 countries, panel data from 26 countries. Could you tell me from where you took the data, and could you explain briefly about the data?
Mainly, these growth factors I collected from World Development Indicators. And regarding this footprint consumption, there is one global footprint network itself they are providing. Then I have collected from some indicators from SDG indicators database. It is available in this United Nations website.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Martin, you have to say anything? Any other questions? There are, I do not see any questions. So, I would conclude that we sort of discussed two different aspects. One was rather three. One was from the Nepal about the survey, and it was a sort of an economic survey. Then we have Salva, who did the modeling on the footprints and the economic development using panel data. And Sarita, so all the presentations were aligned differently. Sarita Singh, she looked at the spot market analysis, and Martin has looked at the auctions, how they might not be very applicable or might not be very desirable for the Austrian system. So with that, I will bring this session to the close, and let's hope we meet again sometime. So thank you all of you for taking your time out and for coming in to discuss over here. We may summarize some of these things, and then it will be shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hello again from Austria.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you from Nepal.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.